2020, a year of many unforeseen challenges, where all had to adjust to a new reality. And despite it all, gotkushTV was and still is here to serve you. And what a year it's been. We began the repatriation journey with our new show, Voyage to Motherland. We dropped the knowledge as you took your seats in the Kush Community and joined us to hold a meds with the Ankh Doc. gotkushTV invited you to get involved in conscious, controversial conversation and enter Decipher. And when the world went into lockdown, we kept you connected with the Quarantine Convos. We kept our finger on the pulse of the community with coverage of the Reparations Rebellion and the Black Pound Day all dayer. Not to mention more wordsmith and a slew of new music video releases for your viewing pleasure and the official launch of the gotkushTV website. We also brought you events including Women of Power and of course Blacktricity. Now, in 2021, gotkushTV is continuing to level up the thing. First up, we are pleased to inform you that gotkushtv.com is open to exclusive memberships. Sign up to any of our membership tiers and you will gain access to playbacks from all our events and an ever-growing list of exclusive original content, including interviews, documentaries, and shows such as Kush Community. To become an official member of gotkushtv.com, simply hit the membership tab. Stay tuned for continued updates. Then there's the new show. Look out for more Decipher, Wordsmith, Hold a Meds with the Ankh Doctor, and weekly episodes of Quarantine Convos focused on health, wellness, education, and inspiration for our community. As always, the gotkushTV film team is available for hire to cover all your events, adverts, infomercials, and all filming needs. Visit us at gotkushtv.com for hire inquiries and more information. Stand by all black businesses through our website, social media, and show content. We have monumental advertising, sponsorship, and network opportunities catering especially for you. Check out the advertising page on gotkushtv.com for more information. gotkushTV is in full flight to join us for the ride. There's 4 things you can do. Subscribe to our channel. Hit that bell to make sure you don't miss a release. Join us on all social media and hit up gotkushtv.com to subscribe to our mailing list and sign up to become a gotkushTV member for exclusive opportunities in the near future. Let us know you are feeling our content by hitting that ever so important button of approval. Comment. We want to hear your feedback on everything we are putting out. So make sure your presence is felt in the comment section. Share. Spread the word by hitting that share button and exposing your circle to the magnificence that is gotkushTV. We are looking forward to building with you throughout 2021 and servicing you with high quality black media production. gotkushTV, beyond discussion, beyond debate, we put the power in black media.
Quarantine Convos. Enjoy weekly discussions with people from around the world assisting us in dealing with this normal, mentally, spiritually and physically. We feature nutritionists, psychologists, therapists, personal trainers, home educators, legal experts and more, bringing you all the information and inspiration you need. Check out Quarantine Convos every Thursday from 7 p.m. live on gotkushTV.
Mic check 1 2, mic check 1 2, all on there. Make the people them see my good looking face. All right, kings and queens, we're there. We're inside the place. It's Quarantine Convos with gotkushTV, and we are here. My name is Shakara. Oh, you mean? I saw we do it. I saw we tan. And yeah, man, kings and queens, it's going to be a beautiful show today, an excellent show today. So make sure when you come through, you hit up the like button, yeah? Smack up the like button and make sure you raise the profile of this gotkushTV energy in the land of the World Wide Web, the internet. Utilize the chat feature, yeah, on the side of your screen, because we're going to be having a very in-depth conversation with a number of beautiful, good-looking Africans from around the world, kings and queens. And so we give thanks for their presence. We want to ensure that you also check out gotkushtv.com, yeah, for all your information and news on all things Gotkush TV. And you don't know, when it comes to Quarantine Convos, we don't fly so low. So we want to introduce you to the co-host, our co-host, the wonderful, the beautiful, the one and only Sister Mut. Greetings, Sister Mut.
Greetings. Greetings all. Looking sharp there, bro. Looking sharp.
Well, we do try, you know, sis. You know, we do try. You know what I'm saying? So we have woman, so we don't have nobody for impress, but you know what I mean?
I'm not precious there, bro. No.
As them say, you have to keep love new and all these things, so we give thanks. You know what I'm saying? I was gonna say, so I do like the color of your head wrap. It's very, I like them kind of, you know,
Thank you. It's
kind of green there. Yeah, man, we like it. It'll work. You know what I'm saying? It'll work. All right, family. So Sister Mo is in the building. What are you saying, Sister Mo? How you doing?
Well, I'm good. You know, apologies, everyone. I wasn't here last week. I had to make the call at 6 o'clock last week.
Indeed.
Said, yo, there's a baby coming. I gotta go, you know.
Yep.
So we have to go the show. Or the baby gotta come true, like new life and everything there. So the baby came through,
listen.
safe and well.
Yeah, man. No apologies necessary. You know what I'm saying? You know, if there's one thing to stop the show for, it's a new African child. So we give thanks.
Yeah, I think my baby's like my baby seems to like a Thursday these days. Yeah, they kind of like a Thursday. Yeah.
In the Akan tradition, they'll be named either Ya or Yao. Yeah, that's why you see Ya to her, because she's born on the first day. I am in fact a Yao. Yeah, so shout out to all the yas and the yaos, yeah, coming forward, you know what I'm saying, into the earth. We appreciate that completely.
Yes.
Sis, let's get into the week roundup, because I know at least one of our guests has a short time with us, so we want to get to the guests very quickly. So go through, sis. You got a few things that we want to highlight.
Yeah, you know, although we didn't get to do the show last week, there is some, you know, there's a couple of things that have really stood out for me this week. And one of them is, if anybody knows the sister Ngozi from Sister Space, she is putting out a petition, Valerie's Law, compulsory training for agencies supporting Black women who have had an experienced domestic violence. Yeah. This is a specialist training, that they want the government to take into consideration and for agencies to support Black women, and that they are culturally appropriate when using them. So if you could flash that out for me. We have in the last 24 hours had 5,000 signatures. Let this thing run. We need 100,000 signatures by October. So 30th of October 2021. So please, if you are living in the UK, I think it only counts if you are a UK resident. So if you can go on the web, go on Google it, do what you like. Go find Valerie's Law petition, sign it, send it. Remember, there's 2 steps. You sign it, then you go to your email and you verify it, and that's how your piece of signature and your name gets recorded. So please do that, folks. Let's get going. Let's do that, because nobody else is going to deal with us unless we deal with us. And then we're going to complaining that there's no support. So this is it. The sisters out here doing the work. Support the team. Secondly,
sorry, so just before you go through, so eyes wide open, it's a petition sign. So we just want to be about that.
Please send it on. Please send it on.
Yeah, sharing them thing there. And I want to shout out to all the brothers and sisters out here that are conducting and attending courses in African-centered psychology, because it's those kind of skills that are going to be utilized in an endeavor like this. So we give thanks for that.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
And then, for anyone who knows, we know that there has been an influx. We've spoken about this before, and it might be that we have to do some kind of special on this because it's getting serious out here. Our children are going missing at epidemic proportion. It's not a joke. One young son, a king of ours, got nabbed, thrown in a van, drugged, taken to a house. The little youth escaped, bless him, but also there were other children in that house. There are people out here, soldiers out on the street. Brothers, stop. This is your time. Step up. Yeah, this is important. Yeah, we've got to keep the babies close, stay vigilant. There's so many videos, people trying to nab this child from here, car park, all sorts. Yeah, so I'm telling you now, take this thing seriously. Know who your friends are moving with. I saw a post today that was looking for a young lady, and there was 2 girls in it, and she said, and the post said that their daughter went out with a friend. Know who the young people's friends are, please. Yeah, because we don't know if they're part of it or not. Unless you get the names. Me, I'm old school. I know all the friends' names, addresses. That's it. That's me. Yeah, go old school. Know everyone. So please stay close to your children. Keep your babies close to you. Your young people close to you at all times. Family. Yeah.
Yes. All right. I had one piece of news, but I'm gonna save it until the conversation, guys. It's appropriate. But I do just want to shout out. I was showing Sister Mort a video before we went live from the artist called Toby Nwigwe, yeah, and also his wife, yeah, Fat Nwigwe is her name. Yeah, it was just a powerful visual, Kings and Queens. The tune is called Fire, and that's FYE, yeah. And so yeah, man, check it out. There's some beautiful, powerful black love energy. Get that in your life. You know what I'm saying? I saw it go. All right, Kings and Queens. All right, we're gonna get to our show today because this is our Africa Liberation Day special. And for those who may not be aware, Africa Liberation Day is observed every year on the 25th of May. Even though nowadays many of the governments on the African continent are seeking to take the liberation out of the day, and so they're calling it Africa Day as opposed to Africa Liberation Day. We're around here, we say liberation, so we're gonna keep it Africa Liberation Day because that is what it is. Yeah, man, we don't have time to go into the history of the day. Maybe we did another day. But just to say that it has been historically an occasion where Africans from around the world kind of gather, refocus, learn about conditions, yeah, about Africans in the rest of the diaspora, and hopefully come out of that with some operational and functional and principled unity. And so our panel today is going to reflect the African diaspora at least to some degree. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Sister Mut to bring us the proverb for the day.
Well, today it's because, yeah, we are highlighting African Liberation Day. I picked a quote from Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, yeah? Kwame Nkrumah's 6th of March 1957 quote says, "Our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of Africa."
Immortal words spoken by the Statue for Kwame Nkrumah on the 6th of March 1957. Yes, indeed. The independence of Ghana is meaningless. Yeah, he said meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the entire African continent. We give thanks. And with that, let us bring through our illustrious panel. And I'm going to start because you know the black woman is the genesis of all things. Yeah, so I'm gonna start with our sister over there in Haiti, Sister Amma Bookman. Welcome to my sister.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you, my sister. Hold tight. We're gonna go and say where are you situated, sis?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
You're in Atlanta, but she's in Atlanta by way of Haiti. Yeah,
absolutely. So I was born in Haiti, and I grew up there till I was about 10 years old.
All right, so really, she's in Haiti right now. Yeah, that way I said.
Exactly.
All right, you know what I'm saying? All right, we're gonna bring through our brother who is also in the United States, but he's in the United States by way of Guadeloupe, and he goes by the name of Joao Gabriel. Greetings, my brother.
Yes, Jumbo brothers and sisters. Nice to have me here. I'm happy.
All right. Now we've got another brother who's also in the USA, but he's in the USA via Guyana. All right, so we're gonna go to my brother Dwayne Omowale. Greetings, my brother.
Greetings. I'm very happy to be here.
All right. It's gonna be a beautiful conversation with you, my brother. And we got one more guest for now, and that is brother Pedro Augusto, who is over there in Brazil, Kings and Queens. So greetings to brother Pedro Augusto.
Hello, greetings. Very happy, very proud to be here with you.
We appreciate you, my brother. We appreciate you. Okay. Now, brothers and sisters, you may have seen the promotion suggesting that Sister Kabu Ma'at Keru from Jamaica, IRA FM, was going to be on the program. Unfortunately, she's had to reschedule because of the fact that there is a historic flight taking place. Yeah, the first time a direct flight from Nigeria to Jamaica. Yeah. Will be taking place in about a week's time, and she's just got her agreement to be able to be on the flight, the return flight from Jamaica back to Nigeria. All right. So she's basically in the midst of all that right about now, which has made it not possible for her to be here today. And it's unfortunate because I was actually going to speak to her about that very same thing, because it was last year that this agreement was made, with Nigeria, as well as the lifting of visa restrictions between Ghana, Jamaica, and Barbados. All right. So we know that these things are smart things, but they're important things, and we have to look at them within the Pan-African context. Yeah. Now, my brothers, hold tight, because we've got a short time with Sister Amma. So I'm gonna begin, by in fact, first of all, before I get to Sister Amma properly, if all of you could just give a brief introduction to yourselves, that would be most appropriate. And then we can get into talking to Sister Amma about what's going on in Haiti right now, because it's hot. I'm saying enough things are going in one of the centers of the Pan-African world experience. Haiti is like one of the meccas, so called, of the Pan-African liberation fight, for good reason. So if I start with Sister Amma, just introduce yourself quickly to the people then.
Hi, greetings. My name is Sister Amma. I am with I have a YouTube channel called Ile Eko Muluabi, where we focus on African-centered ethics and philosophy. And otherwise, I'm out here mostly on Twitter. You guys see me just talking about what we need to do to liberate ourselves. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, my sister. Brother Joao.
Yes, so thank you very much, brothers and sisters. So I'm from Guadeloupe in the Caribbean, still under the French domination. So this is still a French territory. And so I live in the US now for 2 years because I came here to study. And I'm part of the Pan-African Umoja League, which is a Pan-Afrikanist organization that is organized in several parts of the African continent and the diaspora. And also in Guadeloupe, I just started to being close and join an organization based also on the question of, but specifically Guadeloupean liberation. So I'm looking forward to discuss with you about all of that.
All right, thank you very much, Brother Dwayne Omawale.
Yeah, I'm an activist, organizer, and author. I'm actually currently working on my 20th book right now, and I've been involved in various struggles across the African continent and the diaspora, including the struggle in Togo, Barbuda, some of the struggles here in the States. So I've experienced with that struggles all over the world.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely be talking to you about Togo and Barbuda. And yes, you did hear correctly, brothers and sisters. The man said he's on his 20th book. Yeah, I don't know where you find time to write 20 books, but big up yourself, my G. You know what I'm saying? We love that. And this is the beautiful thing, because myself and Brother Omawale and about 100 other brothers and sisters have been locked horns, on Twitter and YouTube for the last few weeks, debating Pan-Africanism and religion. But that is not the conversation today, Today is a different conversation, and it just goes to show that we can debate and come together and unite after we debate. You know what I'm saying? And now it's these things. And that's it, God. Yeah, that's what it's about. And finally, my brother Pedro Augusto.
Well, hi, I'm very proud to be here with you. I'm Pedro Augusto. I'm from Brazil, specifically from Santo André, here close to São Paulo, the most inhabited region of Brazil. I work in Petrobras, and I'm representation of the union of people who work at Petrobras here in Brazil, and also I'm involved in the construction of the Party of Socialism and Freedom that we have built to resist against. One of the things is to resist against the violence against our people, against African people, and this the party of Marielle Franco. and I'm very proud to be part of that. And I would, João Gabriel, I got really surprised because I have my brother is named João Gabriel, so I'm here from Brazil, you're from there, and you both have the same name. So bye bye. I'm happy to see you too.
Oh wow, our brother seems to have dropped off, but I'm sure we'll get him back. He's back. He's back.
So sorry about that. Yeah.
No problems. All right, thank you for joining us, brother Pedro. We truly appreciate it. And it's good to connect with Brazil because Brazil has the most Africans, in the Western Hemisphere, little as it's known. The most Africans in one concentrated country is in Brazil, and we want to shout out the name of Zumbi, you know what I'm saying, because Zumbi is a freedom fighter, from Brazil. All right, so let's get into it. Now, Sister Amma, Haiti, as I said, is like a central spot, in terms of the Pan-African world. A lot of us are spiritually linked, to Haiti because of what it represents, in terms of the Haiti Revolution and it being the first nation, to completely free its population from enslavement, outlaw enslavement, and so it represents a bastion of African nationhood even to today, even though we know what has happened since in terms of the continued attack against Haiti from that time until now. And we don't have time to go into the entirety of that history, but if you can, in brief, just give us a snapshot of what is actually taking place on the ground. We know there's been a lot of protests for months now against the government, and so what's really sparked these protests, and what are they aimed at achieving?
So Haiti represents the continuous existence of African people around the world, and that the one thing you can always count on is Haitians not giving up and continuing the struggle. This particular struggle is just another one in a long line of struggle of resisting Western puppets and dictators who act in the interest of Western powers as opposed to the interests of Haitian people. So in Jovenel Moïse, we have a puppet government which has funneled billions of dollars of oil wealth to his cronies, which has made Haiti available for any corporations from around the West who want to come in and exploit Haiti, and who has failed to provide security for the people. So the biggest challenge, in addition to the contested election, date of the election, so Jovenel Moïse, by his own understanding, wants to be in power for another year because he began his tenure 1 year late. Now, just to give you a little background, this happened with President Jean-Bertrand Aristide when he was sent into exile, and he did not extend his tenure as president, but stepped down and stood for another term. So there were elections. So there should have been elections. There have not been elections. That's part of the reason why there's been protests. In addition to that, he's suspended parliament and not held parliamentary elections. And so people are upset because by all understanding of the word, he is a dictator. In addition to that, Haiti is now governed by a group of gangs, of competing gangs. And there is evidence that Jovenel Moïse has worked with a gang member. I'm going to find his name for you, who used to be actually a member of the police force, who now leads the gang, who has engaged in a series of attacks, especially in Lavalas stronghold. Lavalas is the party of former President Jean-Bertrand Aristide, or in their neighborhoods throughout Haiti where people are sympathetic to that movement, or simply want to resist. And so we've had instances where as many as 200 people have gotten shut down in particular neighborhoods. These acts of violence are presented as acts of gang violence. So you don't see police officers coming. You see gang members coming, arbitrarily shooting people, raping women. But the people on the ground understand that this is this violence is backed by the government, and it is specifically targeted at neighborhoods and locations where resistance towards the Jovenel Moïse dictatorship are particularly pronounced. So I'll stop there, and we can talk about it some more, especially the history.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, because I'll ask you one more, then I'll hand over to Sister Mo, and then we'll get to the rest of we'll interact with the rest of our brothers and come back to you, sis, if we can. It might be right to just explain the significance of Jean-Bertrand Aristide and La Valasse, the party of which he was the leader, and why that's significant in this scenario.
Okay, are you asking me?
Asking you, yes. No,
okay,
you.
All right, sorry. So Jean-Bertrand Aristide rose up in the 90s. He was a Catholic priest at the time, to stand up for the Haitian people who had literally been living under Haiti. At this point is essentially a colony of the United States. So Haiti had experienced a series of economic infractions by the United States. One of the most poignant ones was Haiti had these black pigs that a lot of people use to support themselves. So there were a lot of pig farmers. They were indigenous to the island. At some point, the United States said these pigs are a threat, like they have some kind of virus. This was when I was, I don't know, like I was a little girl. So I don't remember this. These are stories my parents told me. And so they killed all these pigs and said, hey, we'll take care of you. We'll bring in these American pigs, which are not suited for the environment, and basically left people impoverished. And these are the kinds of activities and policies that the United States has implemented really for a very long time, going back to the occupation in the early 20th century. And so resisting American economic imperialism was one of the hallmarks of Jean-Bertrand Aristide's and the La Valasse's party's points, particularly America dumping subsidized rice and subsidized produce, which impoverished Haitian farmers who could not compete and who were told, by the way, to liberalize their own economic policy. So the hypocrisy is America puts money into his farm, therefore it's not truly a free market, and as we understand a free market to work, because they do not have to sell at a market price. They are subsidized by the government. But Haitians are told, and Black people all over the world are told, what you need is economic liberation, and what you need is a free market, and you need to open up your doors and allow us to sell. And of course, you can sell to us, but you don't have not only do you not have the mechanism, but you can't subsidize, because apparently if we do it, it's contrary to the dictates of the free market. So the La Valasse Party and Jean-Bertrand Aristide ran on such a platform. One, this was not popular, obviously, with the West. And so he went into exile until, I have to say, upon his return, he had to conform to some of the mandates. So we did not get to see a lot of the things that he campaigned on, simply because I think at the end of the day, because we are not united as a people, and because there's almost no one you can turn to when a Western power wants you out, there's a limitation to what you can do to bring about the liberation when your opponent is a country like the United States, whose military budget is more than everybody else's in the world's military budget combined.
I will go further. I think the USA's military budget is is more than a lot of countries' entire GDP. A lot of the time. So that's madness. I don't know. You got a question here, Sister Mo?
I just want to gauge. Your background is in ethics and philosophy. So I just wanted to gauge what actions you're taking from where you are, and is there, you're obviously in the States, and so what action, is there any action cross-continent that's taking place right now where you're involved?
With respect to Haiti, I do support, and actually I'll share it in the chat. There's an organization that I support. It's called Color of Hope. and it is to women on the ground helping children doing various projects in Haiti. Politically, it's hard. I don't support any political activist organizations right now, simply because it almost doesn't seem to me that we can get through with the various camps of gang violence that is happening to have actual political stability. But here's something that I would urge everybody to do, and you can do this whether you're in America or in Haiti. Boycott rice land. So you don't have to buy that particular brand. Don't buy American rice. If you don't buy American rice, try to support other rice. Hard to get Haitian rice. But one of the things that I have, there are people in Haiti who are doing this, and I support them, is simply try to get some kind of local development of food supply by draining the resources from some of these American subsidized goods. So that's something simple you can do, and that's something that I do. I just avoid that particular rice that is produced in the United States.
Thank you very much for that, sis. We're going to come back to you before you have to duck, but we do want to get to our other brothers on the panel. And yeah, I'm going to go to Brother Omowale. Now, by the way, I was trying to get Brother Chris Sankara from the Pan-African Congress of Azania to join us also, but he seems unavailable. So, yeah, our brothers and sisters who are actually on the continent, won't be here today. But our brother Dwayne Omowale does a lot of work, with brothers and sisters on the continent, specifically in the nation of Togo. And because we live in the English-speaking world, a nation like Togo is not a nation that we're often used to hearing about, but Brother Omowale has the links, and he's working very, very closely with brothers and sisters in Togo. So I really want Brother Omowale, if you can, to just give our people a bit of an idea of what the movement is like. What are the goals of the movement that you're supporting in Togo at the moment? And what are the aims, objectives, and how we can all, how you're involved and how we can all be involved.
Okay, well, the main objective is putting an end to the dictatorship there, which is actually the oldest neo-colonial dictatorship on the continent right now. This is a dictatorship that's been in power since 1967. It was previously established by a man named Yedema, and then Yedema died, and his son Ford is the current dictator. So we have a father-son relationship, and it's very similar to what we saw in Haiti, actually, with Duvalier, Papa Doc and Baby Doc. So it's a situation where the country since 1967 has been under the domination of a single family that brutally imposed their wills on the Togolese people. The amount of human rights violations that have been taking place in Togo is just absolutely horrific in terms of the murder, the torture, the arrest, the type of things that people in Togo have to deal with. And in fact, when I first got involved in the movement there, it was in 2017, when there were protests taking place to put an end to the dictatorship. And how the government responded was by actually sending out the military to open fire, fire live rounds into the protesters, killing many of them. Many protesters were beaten to death. The military in Togo, they will walk around with big sticks and just beat people with sticks, sometimes beating them to death. So that's the type of brutality that the people of Togo have been experiencing. So as of right now, the main struggle there is just putting an end to that dictatorship and kind of establishing a more free and democratic space, with the understanding I spoke to brothers and sisters in Togo, and they're very aware of the fact that, putting an end to these dictatorships, that's just one level of the struggle. There's a whole nother layer of the struggle, and that layer is, what's the next step? Once we get rid of these leaders, how do we restructure our nations in such a way that we won't have to deal with these issues moving forward? So that really me with Togo as well, the fact that a lot of brothers and sisters, they recognize that the long-term goal really isn't putting an end to the poor dictatorship there. The long-term goal is actually replacing it with a new system that will be beneficial to the people of Togo. Now, in terms of how people outside Togo can assist with the struggle, I'm actually glad that you mentioned the language barrier, the fact that Togo is a French-speaking country, because one of the advantages that the dictatorship there has is the fact that because it's a French-speaking country, because Togo is a relatively small African country in comparison to places like Nigeria or South Africa or some other places that we think of when we think about Africa, so much of the abuses and the things that go on there simply do not get the international attention that it needs to get. So when I first got involved, the main thing that I was doing was, at the time, I wrote for Huffington Post. So I just used to write articles to put what was going on in Togo out there into the mainstream news, because prior to me writing these articles, no one in the American media was covering what was going on in Togo. So that was very important for the people of Togo to be able to see that the international community, or people within the international community, are aware of what's going on there and trying to bring attention to what's going on there, and also helps to expose the dictatorship there, because even though I keep referring to the regime there as being a dictatorship, for Nasimbe, as far as the international community is concerned, is actually the democratically elected president of Togo, and has been since 2005. And of course, when we look at the situation there, we see elections are rigged. There's so much political repression that it's not a free, open, democratic society. But the international community continues to treat him as if he is democratically elected. And one of the things I wrote about was a few years ago when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. She actually went to Togo and met with the president. Then after, she spoke about all the democratic gains that the government of Togo was making, basically giving the perception that Togo is not as oppressive and dictatorial as it actually is. And obviously, that's not been the case. So I would think those brothers and sisters who are outside of Togo that would really want to assist the struggle, the main thing that we can do is just keep raising attention and keep exposing the fact that the government there is not democratically elected. It's a very brutal, repressive regime. And our brothers and sisters in Togo, as I said, when I got involved, there were protests going on in 2017. The government has basically militarized the country to the point where there are no more protests going on. There's no mobilization going on. So it's very difficult for the brothers and sisters in Togo right now to really organize and mobilize against the regime. So I think for that reason, it's very important that those of us in other parts of the African continent, and those of us in the diaspora, really lend our voices to what's been going on there, because the regime has been very effective at stifling local opposition.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I'm going to ask you a question that's historically based in terms of the context for all of that, right? So first of all, brothers and sisters should be aware that Togo is like a small little nation in between Ghana and Benin, on the other side, one little small. So this is how the European powers cut up the continent, right? One little small sliver, of a nation, and in fact, in I believe its first prime minister, Sylvianus Olympio, was assassinated in 1963. One of the early African leaders to have been assassinated. Why was he assassinated? Because he wanted to break away from the French currency, and he began to print Togo's own currency in Togo. Now the issue of the French currency, the CFA franc, is an issue today, and Togo is still a member nation of the CFA franc, right? As it stands right about now. In fact, sorry, as that stands, there's a good book on the CFA franc, Africa's last colonial currency. All right, check it out. It's a good book, the CFA franc story. All right, but if you could just explain for brothers and sisters, brother Omowale, this issue of the CFA franc, and its relationship to African economies, particularly French-speaking African economies on the continent.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would go further than just to see the franc, because one of the things we have to realize about French colonialism on the African continent is that the British, when the British came to Africa, the system that they implemented was what we call direct rule. So there's a bit more of a hands-off type of approach, but the French was a very direct approach. And Togo is an example of this. We saw President Olympio tried to become independent and he was assassinated. Sékou Touré in Guinea, same thing. When he tried to become independent, French came in there and basically sabotaged his economy. So what we see across the African continent, when we look at the struggles in some of the French-speaking countries tend to be the most difficult, because just how closely tied their economy is to France, and the currency issue is a part of that. But on a deeper level, like I said, it's just the fact that France holds such a tight grip on these colonies that any African president from a French colony that's even just had a vision of any kind of economic independence has been severely repressed. Thomas Sankara is the most well-known example of an African president who, in 4 years, it was really amazing to see what he was able to accomplish in terms of getting his country on the path to self-reliance and self-sufficiency. He didn't want to be dependent on France, so of course France came in there and assassinated him. But when you look across the African continent, the worst the most oppressive and brutal dictatorships, usually they tend to be the French-speaking dictatorships, and the reason for that is because, as I said, the French control over Africa is so strong that they tend to put the most, I guess I could say the most mindless puppets in terms of puppets who are willing to serve the French will. I don't know if y'all saw the president of Chad was killed. So the France went there, and he was talking about the guy as if he was a personal friend. So this is the type of relationship that we see as well between France and African presidents. These African presidents are so close that the French president will often describe these people as being friends. Togo is an example as well. Ayedem, who's the father of the current dictator, he was a close personal friend of the president in France. So it's a very close colonial relationship between France and their former African colonies that is unique because, as I said, you don't particularly see that with the British colonies. It's not as close to the Portuguese colonies. So, French colonialism in Africa was unique in a lot of ways, and we're still seeing the struggles with that as well. And not even just in the African continent, we could go overseas to the diaspora. When we look at the Caribbean, especially, the connection between France and some of those former colonies, such as French Guyana, Martinique, and the fact that those are still colonies. They're not even independent yet. So even in the Caribbean, we see situations where most of the former British colonies have formally become independent, whereas most of the former French colonies, they're even on paper, they're not independent yet. Haiti was the one that actually had that revolution and declared its independence. So we saw how quickly France came in and crushed Haiti and suppressed the economy. So and a point that I want to make here is that just French colonialism is very unique in terms of just how the extremes that France will go to sabotage any black economy for the sake of retaining the colonial dominance.
All right. Sister Mort, do you have a question? You're on mute, sis.
Sorry, you mentioned that you've been writing about this. Now you're on your 20th book, right? So I just wanted to kind of gauge, has your work been about that consistently, and what is your body of work? Tell us a little bit about your body of work.
I did write one book about that. It's called For Must Go. My body of work, I've covered so many different topics.
Sorry, bro. Say the name of the book again. Your mic is kind of going in and out sometimes. And I don't know if you got headphones or a headset, but that might be better. But yeah, but go ahead. We can hear you most of the time. Every now and then it kind of goes out. So
can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the name of that book is For Must Go, and that actually is the name of the movement in Togo. It's the For Must Go movement, and it was designed to kick out the President for. And one of the things I want to say about that slogan, but that's very interesting, Togo is a French-speaking country, but the people that organized the For Must Go movement specifically picked an English name for the slogan rather than French, because that's symbolizing the fact that they're not just kicking out for, they also want to kick France out of Africa. So part of that is refusing to use French language in their slogans. So that was a book I wrote that was specifically about Togo, but the body of work that I have has covered so many different topics across Africa and the African continent. I've written about various different African kingdoms, civilizations, various different struggles across the diaspora. I've written about slave rebellions throughout the Caribbean, the Haitian Revolution. I've written about the civil rights movement. So basically what I've tried to do in my body of work is just capture the entirety of the history and the struggles of African people, from our history as an independent people prior to colonialism to the various struggles against slavery and colonialism around the world. And one of the things that I think is particularly important about how I approach my work, I'm working on my 20th book, and I see these books as forming, even though they're separate books, I see them as forming an interconnected narrative. And to me, that's connected to the fact that as African people, our struggle has been a global struggle. It's been an interconnected struggle. It was mentioned earlier, I was born in Ghana, and I come out of the Pan-African movement in Ghana. My mom was part of the Working People's Alliance in Ghana, which that was Walter Rani, the political party. Walter Rani was the guy who wrote How You're Underdeveloped Africa. And when you look at just Ghana's history alone, particularly during that period, there was a very large Pan-African movement that Walter Rani was a part of. Walter Rani was a professor in Jamaica, was a professor in Tanzania. Forbes Burnham, who was the prime minister of Ghana at the time, he supported various different liberation struggles across the continent, including South Africa. So, when I'm writing my books, how I see it is these books form part of a interconnected narrative that reflect the fact that our history as African people, regardless of where we may be born in the world, is interconnected. Our struggles have always been connected to each other, and my work, I think, reflects that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, my brother, we know that there is a serious uprising taking place in a lot of the French-speaking African nations, so we'll come back to that in a sec, because the people are responding, to this thing. Sister Amma, you good? Let us know when you got to run. We do want to get to back.
I'm good for another 10 minutes.
All right. Well, if my brothers Joao and Pedro, can we come back to Sister Amma quickly before she has to go? And then we'll get back to you in a second. Yeah. Thank you, Sister Amma. I know you've taken, some good time to be with us today. So we appreciate your time, my sister. In this respect. Now, first of all, I know somebody's gonna ask, how is Aristide and what's he doing? is he about in what is going on at the moment? Someone's going to ask that. So let me ask that now.
I don't know. It's not in Haiti and not active in Haiti, to my knowledge.
Right. Now, okay, right. So, and in that sense now, because we speak about Pan-Africanism, and brother Omowale just said a minute ago in terms of the Pan-African movement in the Caribbean, and in my humble opinion, my sister, the rest of the Caribbean, Africans in the Caribbean, have a very poor record, when it comes to standing in solidarity and support with brothers and sisters in Haiti. From your vantage point, what has been the response from brothers and sisters in the rest of the Caribbean in relation to what's going on in Haiti?
I think what you see in Haiti is, unfortunately, the disunity that you see throughout the African world. So I don't know that it's unique. Haiti has the unique challenge of having the Dominican Republic right next door, which has really not been on board with Haiti's revolutionary vision from its inception, and in many ways has abused Haitians. Recently, we saw Haitians who had been in the Dominican Republic for 3 generations getting deported to Haiti, even though they, only spoke Spanish, or just sometimes people with dark skin who are automatically assumed to be Haitian were also targeted. Dominican Republic is currently building a wall. So talk about the wall in America, but they want to build a wall. And then, I know that there was some tension with Haitians trying to move to the Bahamas, and not always being welcome as well. And I think, everybody has their economic challenges, but what we have not done in the region is really coalesce around some economic and political goals that would benefit us collectively. So we're often going it alone, and that's the challenge.
A broader Pan-African question before you go, because I've been very specific, partly because I know your time was limited. Otherwise, I might have started with some broader and gone specific, But in terms of the broader perspective, from your vantage point, my sister, dealing with Africa Liberation Day and the fact that we need to link up as a diaspora, I just want you to speak to that, the importance of that Pan-African link up and avenues that you see for us to be able to achieve that more effectively in our generation, being able to develop principled and operational unity in the African diaspora.
So in the it's difficult in the diaspora without a strong there's not strong support from the continent, and in certain ways, I'm not sure this is the most popular opinion, but when Haiti applied twice to be part of the African Union, that did not, we were rejected. And I often bring that up, right? So we often need somebody, we need attention and support from people on the ground there. Now, I'm going to bring up what I consider a very boring topic, but I actually think is really essential to our liberation, which is our economic independence. So you cannot be free until you can't depend on yourself. So earlier I talked about Haiti and Haiti's lack of food independence, which was engineered by the United States. But that lack of independence exists throughout the continent. And I believe it was in 2018, there was a proposal out of Rwanda and from the AU to put in a levy on imports from non-member states to the continent. This is not something I hardly ever see Pan-Africanists talk about, and everybody's so kind of boxed into their own, agendas. But the AU does not fund itself adequately. It depends on foreigners, and you can't be free if you can't fund yourself. So even if the AU wanted to ally, or African nations wanted to ally with Haiti and other African nations, they are beholden to other interests. And so one of the things that I need to do better, and I would like to encourage other people to do, is to look into this. Maybe I'll share something about it on my Twitter timeline today and moving forward, which is how can we get this going? So it was a conversation. I've seen a couple people post about it, but the idea is let's put a tax on anything that comes into the continent. First of all, it encourages people to produce domestically. Because they'll have to pay extra to get the stuff from America or Europe. And also the money is supposed to go to fund this institution. And I know we all criticize the institution, but if it can't fund itself, it can't be held accountable to the people on the ground. So it needs that. And if we can't back something like that, then we can't achieve the ends that, or hope to achieve the ends that we want. So that's the one thing I really wanted to plug, is this, boring, 0.2% levy for imports on the continent. I think if we got something like that done, we could actually have an AU that could, where people could have the backbone to say, I'm not doing what you want, China or whatever. But if, whoever has the gold make the rules. That's kind of unfortunately, the way the
I did hear some talk of recently in Kenya. There's a movement rising up against the government receiving any more loans. It's these loans that often restrict, because there are conditions attached to these loans that often restrict the capacity, to tax these foreign companies, and so but I believe that the government in Kenya is already trying to attack that movement in more ways than one. Sister Mut, do you have a question for Sister Amma before she has to depart from us, unfortunately? You're on mute again,
You're on
sis.
mute.
Sorry, I'm just hoping that there's no echoes. I'm trying to alleviate any echoes. Sorry, sis. I just want to thank you for coming on and taking the time out to come this evening, because I know, you have to shoot off, and, I think this is an opportunity for people to really gauge what we need to do and where we need to start, pooling our resources and our thoughts towards Haiti. And so, I just want to give my appreciation and love for you coming on. Thank you so much, sis.
Well, thank you. And yesterday was Haitian Flag Day, so I appreciated all of you who celebrated with us online. Well, thank you. I'm going to depart on that note, and it was lovely being with you guys today.
Give thanks, my sister. Give thanks, Sister Amma Bookman, right there, kings and queens. Do check out her Twitter; it is very lively, and you can check out colorofhope.org, which is the organization that she mentioned earlier. So we give thanks to Sister Amma Bookman, named after the Bookman Dutty, the person, the ancestor who kicked off the Haiti revolution with the prayer that implored us to throw away the image of the white man's God. And we appreciate Baba Bookman for that. Right, Brother Joao, my brother,
yes,
in the United States, but from Guadeloupe. Thank you for joining us. I'm saying, from the Pan-African League, Umoja. We appreciate you and your presence, my brother. And hold tight, Brother Pedro. We're gonna come to you very shortly. Okay, we're gonna come to you soon. All right. Brother Joao, first of all, just let people know, what is the Pan-African League, Umoja? Let's start there.
Okay, so the Pan-African Umoja League is a political organization, committed to unite Pan-Africanist revolutionaries with a strong class analysis to make Kwame Nkrumah dream of a Pan-African state into being. So at first, just to give a brief history, at first the Pan-African League was created in 2010, and it was originally called the Pan-African League of Congo Umoja, because at first the organization was dedicated to fight neocolonialism in Congo specifically, so the Congo Republic, so the one with Brazzaville as a capital. But then 2 years later, in 2012, the founders of the organization decided to create what is now the Pan-African Umoja League, because while fighting neocolonialism in Congo, they made connection with Pan-Africanists outside of Congo, and they decided that it would be better to recreate the organization on the basis of Pan-Africanist unity. So due to the commonality of the struggle faced in Africa. And so now we have 8 sections on the African continent. So we've one very active, like I said, in Congo, but also in Niger, in Benin, with connection in Nigeria, for instance, also in Togo. And we do have also sections, not sections properly, but connections in the Caribbean, specifically a little bit more in Martinique than in Guadeloupe. But this is we start to build things. And also we do have what we can say the international type of territorial sections, which means when we are in the West. So basically the French section, the Belgium section, the Switzerland section. And you do have those like me who are not in position to be in a specific section because there are so few of us there. So there is 2 other brothers in the Maryland where I live, but we need to be a little bit more to be a section. So we are attached to the French because in the international in the West, the French section is the strongest, biggest one. So I am still attached to the French section, even though in the US. So that's basically to understand what is the organization.
All right, that's powerful, and I had to ask that because brothers and sisters need to know that Pan-African organizations exist, and I love the fact that you're international, in terms of your formation. So we appreciate that. There's so many questions I could ask you, but let us come back to a lot of the other neocolonial issues. I want to get a sense of Guadeloupe. From you.
Yes.
For a second. Guadeloupe is one of them islands in the Caribbean that we know, like Bermuda. Brother Omawale is talking about Bermuda, We hardly hear about Bermuda unless some white man from America is going on holiday and buys a beachfront resort or something, right? That's what we hear about Bermuda. But we don't even hear about Guadeloupe in that sense, right? So I mean, is there a Pan-African energy in Guadeloupe, and where does it reside?
So I would say, if we talk about Pan-Africanism as a political movement, there is absolutely not a political movement, but there is, I will say that there is Pan-African traces in specifically in spirituality, where people are more and more embracing and reconciliating with the question of Vodou specifically, because one of the things that, it's too bad that the sister left, I understand that she has to leave, but one of the things is that we cannot understand Guadeloupe outside of the relationship of Haiti and France, because Guadeloupe and Martinique and Guyana, so French Guyana, were constructed as the antithesis of Haiti. So we're supposed to be, the images of how it's better to stay French. This is the way the propaganda works. So now we do have people who are trying to work against those type of, colonial propaganda, and it works, for example, in the cultural side and in the spiritual side. But I think that what is missing is specifically the political element. And that is one of the things that also you see that in France is like the hegemonic tendency in the metropolitan France-based Pan-Africanism is mostly around culture, which is very important. And at the same time, we lack the political dimension, meaning what is a class society? How do we take power? Things like this. So I think that in Guadeloupe, the most powerful element fighting neocolonialism in Guadeloupe right now, they are the unions and the nationalists. This is why, and I think that we always need to be aware to expand our vision strategically. This is why, even though I will say I'm a Pan-Africanist, I just joined a nationalist organization because I know that this is where there is local mobilization that are strongly both anti-capitalist and anti-neocolonial. So for now, what I will want to say, one of my last words about Guadeloupe on this is that I think that one of the challenge is to see how Pan-Africanist brothers and sisters outside of Guadeloupe can understand the language of Pan-Africanism, but through our nationalist struggle. Because our nationalist struggle take references from Africa. One of the nationalist organizations just issued a statement for Palestine and reascribing itself in the long tradition of African of the state in the support against all form of colonialism. So they are doing this, but they never use the word Pan-Africanism. So I think that there is something of a translation, a symbolic translation and understanding how we can work, even though sometimes, because I really don't think that it would be a good thing to come with some slogan that do not emerge locally. So we need to understand what happened locally and immerse ourselves in how it works. And this is really there is a strong unionism. And I mean, it could be seen weak in face of the hegemony, but those are the primary forces that can, challenge the French state.
Beautiful. And nationalism is not a term that's out. I don't consider it to be outside of the Pan-African sphere, if that makes sense. I even describe myself as a nationalist Pan-Africanist, if that makes sense, in a lot of ways. So that's beautiful to learn, because I myself, I'm not particularly knowledgeable about Guadeloupe, and so it's beautiful to have you here, my brother. And I look forward to connecting with you more. In that respect. Now, so because of one more question, and I'll hand over to Sister Mut. But because of the reach of your organization, I'd like for you to expand upon what Brother Dwayne Omowale was dealing with in terms of French neocolonialism and the movement against French neocolonialism. What are Africans doing to challenge this stronghold that France? By the way, just as a quick figure, currently today, there are 14 African nations on the continent. That's not including the relationship that France has with Africans in the Caribbean. All right, but there are 14 African nations who deposit over 500. Is it million or billion? It's my mind's gone blank. But either way, it's a lot of money, right? Into the French Central Reserve Bank, every year, annually, yes. And if they want to get that money back, they have to apply for a loan to get their own money back at an interest rate. So in effect, they're paying France, to use their own money, all right. And so that's just one aspect of the reality of the nation of the relationship between France and many African countries. So back to my question, my brother. Give us the overview of that relationship and what Africans are doing to challenge it at the moment.
So if we have to talk about the two most active sections of the Pan-African Umoja League, it would be on the African continent. It would be, like I said, Congo and Niger. And so I think the brothers and sisters there, they are trying to use different approaches. In Niger, they are mostly, not uniquely, but mostly in the universities,
right?
And they also in the form of unions, and they're trying to gather, young people in the present in Niger to form some sort of coalition and trying to build student organization, with the heritages of some of the former student organization, both in the African continent, but also in the diaspora, with, with a broad understanding of we need to take power. So this I would call that some form of macro social type of organizing. Right. But in Congo, you have both, because in Congo, you do have one of the former president and head of the organization, and that Nseni, who he participated in the election. So they're trying to seize power as a political forces in Congo Brazzaville, but they also have something more in Congo, which is the grassroots type of organization. For example, there is a sister over there. She's a doctor, and she's did a very good job in trying to see local people in the, when COVID kicked off. And so she's really trying to, through the question of health and access to health.
What's her name, Barbara? What's her name?
So, sister, let me tell you, Miriam.
Yeah.
I have to, but I think you see who she is, because she's a famous.
Name, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
And so they're making, you know, some type of grassroots organization. One of the sister who was in I think she moved from Congo now. She's back in France, but she was working with the youth around question of, and one of the things that Sister Mood told us at the beginning, the question of taking care of the children, taking care of their health, making sure that they're protected. So, you know, in Congo, they have different type of level of organization. They have the macro social with the presidential election. They are issuing statement about what you mentioned, the question of, you know, central bank and how the money is kept by foreign power, but also by our local bourgeoisie. And that's one of the big issues that the Pan-African Umoja League wants to deal with, is the question of, we not only need to make the colonizer go out, but we need to take down the actual structure, economic structure that it created. Because we do have what Fanon called the bourgeoisie comprador, meaning you do have people, and the Umoja League was really involved with the question of political prisoners in Senegal, because especially around the issues of Guy Marius Sagna. So my last word on that will be that it can be difficult to organize in big type of political structure like this, because when the question is about, you know, seizing power, you do have an institutional dimension, but the organization is trying to keep both the institutional and the grassroots. So I think this is something, they try to create some type of equilibrium between the two, because I think that one of the things that we want to avoid doing is recreating some type of state Pan-Africanism without the people. And this is something that we fear a lot. So that's why we're saying, okay, and this is also why we are very clear when we have connection somewhere, but we don't call that section. We say we have members there, but we don't want to proclaim things at the top, and when you don't actually are implementing on the ground, that could be very dangerous. Even though we have good intention, it can become very dangerous. Yes.
Is the sister's name Dick or Mariam? Is that
no?
Sister?
It's not her. Yeah, that's not her.
Yeah. All right. Sister, do you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, Brother Zhao, you mentioned, and I'm glad you spoke a little bit about you know, the fact that young people are engaging, and I know that it's, you know, you talked about the different 8 parts, but and sections, but they, you know, like, we don't really get to hear about Guadeloupe, and so where do young people, you know, you talked about the spirituality is probably taking more of maybe a stronghold.
Yes, I am.
But I would like to get a sense of, you know, where the young people, you know, to gauge where the young people are at, because they're part of this fight, this struggle, this importance for political power. Yeah. And I wonder where Guadeloupe, you know, where young people sit inside of, you know, Pan-Africanism inside of Guadeloupe.
So basically, the organization that I just joined, called Alliance Nationale Guadeloupe, so National Alliance of Guadeloupe, created a section dedicated to young people, because we face a double challenge in Guadeloupe, and I am one of the face of that, meaning that this is an old population. So Guadeloupe has more old people than young people, because most of us, we are outside of Guadeloupe. So there is a very diasporic dimension of Guadeloupe when you talk about young people. And the people who are still in the country locally, you have some that are doing really great things, but others are facing a lot of challenges, unemployment, but also the question of all of the violence, systemic violence that capitalism produces when people are marginalized. And like I always said, I don't think why the youth in Guadeloupe would you know, they will see other things and they will condemn, you know, violence and stealing, because those who are in power, this is what they are implementing with a total impunity. So this is in some way, and people who want to portray a good image don't like that we say this, but this is true. This is a very violent society. When you include Guadeloupe as being part of France, this is one of the most, with Guyana, one of the most violent region of the entire French. So I think that it speaks to something. We have a very high, not as much as a Kanaki in other part of, you know, the French Empire in the Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean, but we have a very high, compared to other places in France, very high rate of carceral population. So I will tell you that the young people, they are either struggling, most of them over there, and not depoliticized, but really angry at politics. So a very strong distrust for both institutional politics and revolutionary movement. So when I tried to talk, I was there for several months at the end of 2020 and beginning of 2021, when I was trying to engage with brothers and sisters around the issue of politics. Everyone was like, no, I'm trying to do my thing. I want to make my money. No, this is, and they will give you somewhat good example of former, politician that was supposed to be anti-colonial, that are now living very comfortably in the country, and that are now in the electoral process of France without actually any rupture with the hegemony. So they will tell you why we will sacrifice ourselves in unions or Pan-Afrikanist solidarity. We just want to make our money. Yes. So I think that one of our issues with the youth people is both us that are outside to keep the connections, because honestly, this is very hard. The way the French propaganda works is to integrate yourself and to distance yourself from Guadeloupe completely. For example, I cannot vote, even though I'm French, I cannot vote, for the elections local in Guadeloupe, but I can vote for election in France, like the nationals one. So there is a disconnection that is produced. Just to give you another example, colonial geographies. I live in Baltimore. When I want to go to Guadeloupe, which is in the Caribbean, it's easier for me to go back to France, and then from France to Guadeloupe. Otherwise, I have to do maybe 3 or 4 steps in the Caribbean, and the tickets end up to be more expensive. It's very difficult for me. The only places in the Caribbean that I can go easily is Martinique and Guyana in Latin America. But if I want to go to Trinidad, if I want to go to Haiti, to Barbados, it will be, I have to go back to the US. So just to tell you that, just to finish on this, us, the youth outside, one of our fight is stay connected and not integrate just because we are outside. And there is a young organization of people who create something called Alevini. It means basically go back and return. And they're trying to reach out to us outside to say, how can we make life? And not, in an idealized version, but in something very concrete. How can you concretely, specifically create a life over there? Right. So the youth are facing a lot, yes.
Give thanks for that, my brother. Beautiful context that you're giving there. Thank you for that question, Sister Mut. That's a powerful question and got a powerful answer there. Brothers and sisters, we're gonna open the lines to you soon if you want to ask a question and interact. Well, let's hear from Brother Pedro Augusto first and foremost. Greetings, my brother. Thank you for being so patient. We appreciate. Right, my brother, you're in Brazil. Yeah, we appreciate the connection with Brazil, because a lot of us as Africans in the UK, the only time we really hear about Brazil is when it's the World Cup. And we get to watch Brazil on the football field. And I'll let you know, if you don't know, that because Brazil, the team is often full of Africans. That's a lot of Africans' favorite team in the UK. All right, you know what I'm saying? We're either supporting Cameroon, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, or Brazil. Yeah, if any of those don't win, yeah, we want Brazil to win. You know what I mean? So that's a small little element of Pan-African solidarity there. But just give as we say, my brother, Brazil has the most amount of Africans. Yeah. In the Western hemisphere, but the image that we get of Brazil is very whitewashed. It's very white, yeah. Like Cuba, yeah. The image that we get of Brazil is very whitewashed, yeah. So just give our brothers and sisters. I'm going to ask you a very broad question, so I apologize. But what are the conditions, yeah, the general conditions facing Africans in Brazil? I'm sure many don't know what's happening for Africans in Brazil. So I have to ask the broad question.
Yeah. So first, I'm really proud to be here, and this discussion, this debate is very rich for me to listen to Jean Gabriel, to listen to Dwayne, to listen to Ama. For me, is also like really I really appreciate to learn about what's going on in Guadeloupe, what's going on about the Pan-Africanism around the world in the different ways of fighting for our liberation. And here in Brazil, I think that we are a very peculiar country because we are a Latin American country which speaks Portuguese, the only one which speaks Portuguese. And we are as big as a continent. So this is something really peculiar. But I think that this characteristic it provides us a distorted image of ourselves. I mean, it's hard for a Brazilian a Brazilian African to see itself as part of a Pan-African community, you know, because I think that's one of the characteristics of big countries, that they become really self concerned, you know, like is just like all the world is our world. And I think that this is part of our way of being part of the African diaspora. So for us to affirm that we are Africans, that we are Black people, part of the Black people of the world, is already a struggle. It's a political struggle for us, for the Pan-African movement here in Brazil, is to just say, I am an African. I'm not only Brazilian. I'm not a Brazilian. And I have much more things in common with African people around the world than with most of a lot of white people here in Brazil itself. So this is part of ideological struggle that we have to do every day here in Brazil. But I think that in last years things have become different, because I think that we have got I think that exactly the international Black movement, the international, the Black Lives Matter thing, you know, all this fight that has become very really international, and has, for example, what we had last year after the sad murder of our brother George Floyd in USA. So those riots all around the world, and here in Brazil also we had we were part of this movement. And so this is a connection that has helped us to bring a knowledgement, a consciousness about our African condition, you know. But I think that at the other side, our situation here is something that people in the world, they really don't know how difficult it is to be an African in Brazil, because we are more than 100 million people. But for example, we have never had a Black president, an African president here in Brazil. To say an example of how contradiction, how strange are our political formation, you know. It's we were the last country in the world to officially here in the Western countries to officially end the slavery, you know. So we have still deep scars of this, because the structure that came after the end of slavery was a really sharp, a really you know, sophisticated technology of domination, and it was really there was a really attempt of Brazilian state to just like that the African people really disappeared of our country. There were a lot of something like sometimes we hear about the apartheid, or we hear about the Jim Crow in USA, but here in Brazil we had things really similar to what happened. Not always written, not always like legally done, but concretely that's how things happen. So we are a segregated country. So you know where black people live, you know where white people live, you know what jobs black people have and what jobs white people have, you know. So in this is something that occurs all around the country, from south to north, and this continent. And this situation has been really has got a deeper proportion after a coup that we suffered here in Brazil in 2016, that removed our first woman who became president, Dilma. And after that coup, we have seen a lot of transformations, a lot of they call reforms, but what we see is like a destruction program of our independence, and also a destruction program of our lives. And something that people don't know is that here, the African movement here in Brazil, we say that here in Brazil, we live in a genocide process. It's a historical genocide process. And it's not something associated to Brazilian image, you know? We are the country, the image they associate to us is the country of samba, the country of football, the country of happiness, of joy. Okay, yeah, we have this. We have really samba, we have really football, we have really joy, but we have a genocide process in course here in Brazil.
And I was gonna add carnival. People know Brazil for carnival. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
you know?
for example, in the country that is known as our carnival city, Rio de Janeiro, it's one of our most known cities in the world. It's specifically a city that has been used as a process of slaughter of our people. You know, the amount of people assassinated by the state here in Brazil, and specifically in Rio de Janeiro, is something really scary. You know, Marielle Franco is a symbol because she was a councilwoman. She was a person very known for the Brazilian people, but the unknown people who are assassinated every day, at each 23 minutes, a black guy is shot by police. Yeah, here.
I was going to ask my brother, because last year, and I think so, around the same time that George Floyd was killed, I believe a young 13 or 14-year-old boy was shot to death by the João Pedro Matos Pinto, I believe his name is, or something to that effect, and I remember, because obviously George Floyd blew up, but nobody knew the name João Pedro, right? The little boy who was shot by police, and so those of us, shout out to my brother, Zhang, Obiang Zhang, from the All African People's Revolutionary Party, because he was the one who made me aware of, if it wasn't him, I probably wouldn't have known myself. But we began to try and make people know that police brutality is an international issue for African people. It's not just in the United States of America. When a little boy, can be shot down like that, it's madness. So I was going to ask you about that. And I'm made to understand that there's a lot of organization in Brazil developing around that issue, around the state brutality and the assassinations of people. Is that correct?
Yeah, is that correct? And I think that these organizations, they have improved their connections around the country. I think that we are in a special moment here in Brazil. We are in a process of reorganization of Black movement, and in a way that we are connecting different organizations that that already existed in different cities and different states of the country. And now we have we had last week we had a sad and a happy thing about our African struggle. The strongly sad thing was the slaughter of Jacarezinho, when the policemen, they got into a favela and they shot 29 people, like without any kind of like really executed, like without any kind of defense, self-defense, any kind of way of people were shot inside their homes, inside with children, you know. Really, it's a war scene. What we live in Brazil, it's a war scene, but it's not shown. But there was a reaction and organized by a movement called Coalition of Black Coalition for Rights. You know, it's the translation. And that was a really national movement, and that's something really new for us, like in this scale. So it shows us that it's possible for us to get another level of organization and resistance. But one thing that I really want you to know is that this genocide process that we have lived in Brazil in the last century has become even deeper after Bolsonaro, that is the president of Brazil. He's a he doesn't. He says he is a genocide man. You know, like he says people have to contaminate with COVID, and they don't have to get vaccine, and they don't have to, you know, they have to be in agglomeration. So and he one day after the slaughter of Jacarezinho, he came on TV and said, "I would like to congratulate the policemen who made that action." That's the point. It's something unparalleled in the world, I think. You know, it's what's been here in Brazil. And we have already gone up to 430,000 of people officially dead by COVID. And we are a country that one of the things that has always worked here was our health system. So we have the biggest vaccine program of the world. But now we are a country that we have not vaccinated 20% of our people, even though we could have done as much as United States, for example, because we have a structure who could permit this to occur. So it's different of countries that they don't have structures. We know that there are countries that they can't produce, they don't have the industry to produce vaccines. It's not our case. Brazil is a country, industrialized country, the most industrialized country of Western countries in the South Hemisphere. So we could have plenty of that, but for a government choice, we are being into a really sad moment, really sad moment in our country. But I think that it has connected our African people to fight against that.
Thank you very much, my brother. Sister Mut, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I've been seeing some posts recently how, you know, Brazilians are actively identifying as African. Yeah. And so when you talk about the movements that are, you know, maybe springing up, I would just inquire, I suppose, as to, you know, and thank you for giving us a powerful account of what's going on. You know, it's execution style. Yeah. And you know, and it hurts our heart. And at the same time, you know, where do you place yourself? What work are you doing inside of that from where you are standing?
Well, here, I have been militant of the Socialist Party here in Brazil for a long time, since 2007. But I used to be a militant of union movement. You know, like I work at Petrobras. It's the biggest company in Brazil, and so I have always for many years I wasn't involved in African movement in Black resistance movement. I was involved in union movement. And okay, it's a form of organization, and Black people also organize themselves in union here in Brazil. So, but in the last years, I think that has become more common for Black people to be engaged in Black movement. You know, like Pan-African movement. And I was part of this movement, so I became my main concern about militants here in Brazil is to build in Socialist Party a section where the Black people can organize themselves in a way that they can talk about our Black situation and organize ourselves to fight for power inside the party. But not only that, but how can we connect the Black people, the socialist Black people, to the Black people spread in the country, that they don't see themselves as socialists, but they know that for being Black people, they are poorest people in the country. They live in the worst places in the country. So to try to connect this thing and to organize politically and to fight institutionally too. So, for example, in the last year, I was a candidate in the election here in Santo André, in my city. So it's a phenomenon here in Brazil. Especially after Marielle Franco assassination. It's important to say that because they tried to kill her to say for us that we had to be at home, but what happened was the opposite. Black people, and especially Black women, they really stood like as the most strong movement. And this moment here in Brazil is the Black women movement, and they have been really responsible for the Black people reconnection to the political fight, like institutionally speaking. And I think that this is part of what I have been applied my efforts to develop, because it's really that I see when I go to the streets, when I walk to our country, we see that Black people are starting to see themselves like as a political agent, not only someone who is here to produce, is here to work, is here to play football, but we are also here to fight for the power. So I think that this is the different thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Brothers and sisters, the name that brother Pedro is mentioned is Marielle Franco, activist in Brazil who was assassinated a few years ago. I'm just putting the name there so brothers and sisters can look that up in your own time. But it is very important history that we need to know about in terms of the attack, because there is an attack against activists, in Brazil. And so but a lot of that, Mario Franco, as brother Pedro has said, is the most prominent name associated with that. So through that name, you'll be able to get to know about other people who have been subject to that as well. So do look into that. The link is in the chat. If you would like to come through and ask a question, make a comment to our panel, the link is in the chat. We ain't got a whole heap of time, family, so you know what I'm saying, hit that button very quickly and come through. I have an idea system. It just came to me like 5 minutes ago. And I feel like we've got all these guests from different parts of the diaspora, so we might as well give them an opportunity to ask each other questions, as well. That's how that sound to you, Sister Mo?
Excellent.
All right, but I want to get one question in first, if I may, as the host, I'm going to take that liberty, and ask you, Brother Pedro, because there is also an issue, an environmental issue. As Pan-Afrikanists, we're often concerned with the environment, and in Brazil, we have one of the world's biggest forests, that hit the news, that they call the Amazon, that hit the news some years ago. One, because they said there was a fire there, but also because Bolsonaro, it was said that he was going to basically mine the resources, which would have had an impact on the indigenous people that are living in the Amazon forest, right? So just give our people an idea of what the situation is with the Amazon in Brazil right about now. I think it would be good to just get an environmental perspective as well.
The situation of Amazon, our rainforest, is really something desperate, because the scale of destruction of the Amazon is something that has never been as has been in our days. The exploitation of the resource in Amazon has always been a problem here in Brazil, especially for the original people, the people who were in this country before the Portuguese people arrived here. They were genocided here also. Nowadays they are like small villages, small folks that need the protection of the state not to be killed. But in this moment, as we are talking here, the Yanomamis, they have been executed also by farmers who are going through the forest, like this, to plant just to the agro business, like just to expand the agribusiness, but they do it in a really violent way. But now they have done it for the centuries that came before. But now the government say, go and do it, and don't be concerned, because we, government Bolsonaro, we are going to liberate you to do whatever you want to do. So we have environmental laws, we have environmental institutions, but they have been undermined.
Yes.
They have been really destroyed by the inside, just for not to have conditions to see what's happening and to punish those who go against the indigenous people and the forest. And I think that this is a really important part of the new fascist project of Bolsonaro. It's against Black people in the favelas, in the urban areas, and against the indigenous people in the rural areas, and also against the people who fight for land. Because here we are in a country that has never been, we have a few people who own huge portions of lands of our country. It's something like some portions of that they are like countries in Europe, but one people is the owner. It's something completely crazy.
Yes.
And those people are the ones, the political people who are one of the main supporters of Bolsonaro, you know. And in the other side, we have in the urban areas, the black people are seen as like something to be put under feet of the policeman, like just for the people not to fight against the inequality that it's the mark of our country. So I think that the Amazon issue, I think that is really an international issue, because when you talk about the environmental issue, we are talking about our species life in our in this planet, you know. And we know that this is a Pan-African issue also, because we are the victims of this this expansion. It's not only in Brazil. In Africa it occurs, and only in the Latin American countries, in other countries, we have seen that. So in Haiti, it's something that occurred, that a country that has been destroyed by the USA efforts, and Brazil unfortunately was part of that, because we military occupied Haiti for a bunch of years, you know. In this moment, I think that it's important that the world know that here in Brazil we have to protect the life of people against the genocide of COVID-19, and the genocide of the police violence, and the genocide of our rainforest, the Amazon, who has really gone against our indigenous people, and also the Quilombola people. I don't know if you know, but here in Brazil, we had more than 300 years of slavery, but our people were really resistant. Zumbi was the leader of a Quilombo called a Quilombo in Serra da Barriga, in Alagoas, Quilombo dos Palmares, and we still have Quilombos and the reminiscence of Quilombos that we call Quilombolas, and they are also a target for the expansion of agribusiness. So one more time, the African people have to be concerned about our lives and the life of our species in the world, and to protect Amazon is a really important thing, and as a fight against the genocide of our people, the black people here in Brazil.
Thank you for that, my brother. That's a beautiful, comprehensive answer. I've learned a lot from you. I give thanks. Brothers and sisters, if you want to ask questions, the link is in the chat, or we can take your questions from the chat. I'm going to take them in a second, but I do want to give our brothers an opportunity to ask each other questions if they want to. Yeah, so any of you, if you've got a question for another brother, feel free to ask it now. Go ahead, brother Amwale. You look like you're eager. So don't hesitate, bro.
I'll go ahead now. But something that I've been struggling with as a Pan-Africanist, as someone who's studied and written about history, when we look at the struggle in the 1960s and the 1970s, especially, that was a large global Pan-African struggle. We had people like Malcolm X, Kwame Nkrumah, and others throughout the African continent and the diaspora that were not only struggling within their countries, but also building an international movement, and they're connected together. And what I've noticed, particularly since the 1990s, there seems to be a decline in this global organization. And that's something I've been working to rebuild myself. So I'll put this question out there for both of you brothers. But why is it, do you think, within the last few decades, there's been a decline of the Pan-African movement from where it was at the high point in the 60s and the 70s? And how do you think we can go about rebuilding and re-strengthening Pan-Africanism so that we can get back to that point? Because, as I said, that was the 60s and 70s. To put that into context, that was the decolonization movement. That was decolonization both in Africa and the Caribbean. That was the Black Power movement. there were so many different activities and things going on, and we don't really, seem to be having that level of engagement in these issues, especially on an international level. So I'm just putting out there as to why do you think that the movement has declined, and what can we do to rebuild it to make it as strong as it was before?
That is really the ultimate question, isn't it? Any brother can go first, and yes, after this, brother Pedro wants to ask brother Joao a question also. So go ahead. Anybody who wants to answer brother Dwayne's question?
Thank you, brother, for this question, and I think it's a very complex one because it forces us to also engage maybe more critically with this heritage of the 60s and the 70s, and I think that sometimes, I mean, from what I learned of Pan-Africanism, my first occurrences of Pan-Africanism was a very celebratory history of that. And then when you go deeper, you see that there were, some type of failures, not only the internal failures, but also what you are sometimes forced to do when there is a strong hegemonic forces in front of you. And I think that if we engage with this history and we learn from that mistake, there might be things that we're gonna learn, because for example, there are things that I know from Togo or Ghana or even Tanzania, where you see that the people, and sometimes the proletarian and the lumpen proletariat, so the more oppressed of the country, they turn against the state and some of the famous figures that we take in high consideration for good reason, like Nyerere, like Nkrumah, and all of that, because they had an authoritarian vision of how to implement Pan-Africanism. They sometimes, with this idea of sometimes anti-colonial nationalism, they sometimes force some communities, indigenous communities, to, be incorporated in this state ideal, and, sometimes forcing them to move away from where they were. And so I'm reading things in, for example, East Africa, when you do have aunties, uncles, people, older than us saying, we did not sometimes see the differences between the state under the Europeans and the state under the anti-colonials, because the state itself was a force of violence and dispossession. So I think that there's a lot of deception. And if I take the example of Guadeloupe, like I told you, there is a lot of deception, because those who were the face of anti-colonialism, sometimes they made money of this, or sometimes they were so authoritarian. So I think that if we have again, and also that's for our autocriticism, but outside of autocriticism, one of the other reasons for me is to understand the role of neoliberalism. I think that we were stronger as Pan-Africanists when we had close tight with socialism, Marxism. Now you do have people who claim that they are Pan-Africanists, but we do not actually engage with the question of exploitation. And I think that makes us weaker. That will be my answer.
Give thanks. Brother Pedro, you can either answer or you can ask your question to Brother Joao. You're on mute, brother.
Yeah. Here in Brazil, we say João. Yeah.
Joao.
João. I told you, my blood brother is João Gabriel. It's amazing. This kindness. Yeah, very good. João, but I wanted to ask you first. I couldn't comprehend the name of the organization that you built, so I would like you to say it again. And then I think that something that I have comprehended about your speech, about your vision of the Pan-African struggle, it's about the connection of the Pan-African struggle with the change of the structure of our economic system, like the capitalism as a tool against our people, like historically. And here in Brazil, we sometimes we listen that there are some people of the Black movement that they try to separate, like those fights, like as if we had to do something first, and after we do the other part. So and I think that here, and maybe not only here, but maybe in Guadeloupe, but I would like you to say uh, the individual realization, you know, of the individual access to power, to prestige, to money, and things like that, sometimes disconnect this individual black woman or black man of the collective fight against racism, again for the African people liberation. But in the last years, we have realized a different movement that some prominent black people who get some position in our society has uh, become more sensitive to be connected with the Pan-African movement. How we could like connect these two ways of fighting against our exploitation, you know, like the individual ways that sometimes is the only way that people know, because sometimes it has never been linked to a movement. And okay, we will study and we will try to get a good job and we'll try to make our family living well. But how to connect this perspective to a collective perspective, and how your organization sees this process in this moment, and the name that I would like you to repeat, please.
Yes, so thank you for your question, and I put the name back in the chat, and so you do have access to the name, and also so Pan-African Umoja League, and also the website. And so I think what you just mentioned is one of the main issues of Black liberation struggle is the dissociation from class struggle. I really think that this issue is key, but it's not only because of Black people, it's also because of the treasons of the left, the way the white left had a very Eurocentric understanding of class, made a lot of people who were first Black communists to departed from those type of struggle. So I think that we need to take that into consideration. And for me, that was one of the things that I struggled with when I was still in Paris before coming to the US, is that I didn't understand why Pan-Afrikanists weren't at, strikes, supporting, African workers doing strike and things like this. And it's mostly white unions, engaging in this and providing, support and things like this. There's a new organization in France called, in English, it would be Coordination and Action Autonomous, Black Coordination and Autonomous Action. That would be the English translation. And they are really committed in saying that the roots of Black liberation lies in the fight against exploitation, both in the labor question, but also in the question of migration. So they are really deeply involved in this question of helping migrants. And they said, and they made a strong critique, and I kind of agree with them, that a lot of us, we abandon the question of migration. And the question of migration is linked to the question of exploitation. So I think that there is something that we need to put back at the agenda. And if my last word on this would be that I think that one of the issues, again, maybe it's because of neoliberalism, we tend to have a very sometimes, and when I say we, it's a very general we, not we here, we tend to sometimes have a very identitarian understanding of Pan-Africanism. It's about affirming Blackness, which is important because we need to affirm Blackness against the violence of anti-Blackness. So this is necessary. But the thing is, sometimes I feel like brothers and sisters, us in Pan-Africanism, we do not see where the Black question is if there is not the sign of a Black identity. And I'm saying this because sometimes most of French strikes there are African workers, but since it's not called, like when the strike is, you know, launched, it's not called a black struggle. You do have a lot of black folks, Pan-Africanist folks, who do not identify. And I'm like, when someone is saying, we need the papers because we are exploited, we need to raise wage, we need to have better foyers to live with because they sometimes live in the same type of building, you don't need them to say something about blackness, about Haiti, or about Pan-Africanism to understand that this is a black struggle, because though they are striking. So I think that we need sometimes, again, to expand our strategies and our understanding of the fight, not necessarily need to, you know, view ourselves as Pan-Africanists in every type of struggle to understand that this is actually a black struggle, you see? And then it will help us to make the connection between fight against exploitation and fight for African liberation.
That's a very interesting point, and we that could engage in some serious debate all over the place. But today is not that day. Thank you for that, Arava. It's a very interesting point that I've had conversations with Pan-Africanists over here about, and yeah, and I think that the answer to that is once we're organized sufficiently, we can go in any environment as an organized group of people with our Pan-African ideals and represent whatever issue that we need to represent in that context. Brother Dwayne Amawale, there's a question for you here. And shout out to the name of Baba Walter Rodney. I don't think we can ever overestimate the value of his work, you know what I'm saying? But our brother Afro Native is asking, can Dwayne speak on the situation for Africans in Guyana today?
Yeah, definitely. But I'll start off by saying Ghana is very unique among Caribbean countries because, first of all, we think of Ghana as a Caribbean country, but it's actually located in South America. And there's, a very interesting history behind that because Ghana was a former British colony. So politically and culturally, Ghana has always been more aligned with the English-speaking Caribbean islands as it has been with other countries in South America. But that was also important for understanding the situation of Africans in Ghana today, because when slavery ended in Ghana, what the British did was they brought in different groups of people to basically replace African labor. So the largest group that ended up coming in, and please let me know if you're having issues with the sound again,
because we're hearing you. I don't know if you just need to move closer, but we are hearing you. It just gets a little bit difficult in places, but generally speaking, we're hearing you.
So yeah, just let me know if you have any issues.
Yes,
so what happened was the largest group that was brought into Ghana was the East Indians. And that created a situation where Africans and Indians in Ghana started competing against each other, almost like a competition for survival, because what Africans recognized was East Indians were coming in to basically replace African labor at a cheaper cost, because Africans at that point were engaged in essentially what was a labor dispute, because they just finished working on the plantations as slaves, and now they're moving into the workforce and they're demanding better wages. And the British colonial government decided we can bring Indians in, and the Indians will work at a cheaper cost and basically undermine that whole struggle of Africans. And why I mention that is because the situation of Africans in Ghana today is still a situation of ethnic competition against East Indians. And Ghana just recently had a very contentious election where both the government and opposition claimed that they'd won. So yeah, I won't get into the complexity of that situation, but essentially what happened was the United States and other international bodies actually had to intervene in Ghana's politics. And the incumbent political party, the PNC, which is, in Ghana, the politics is very racialized because of the ethnic competition. So the PNC is seen as the African party, and the PPP is the Indian party. So the PNC was in power, and the United States and other international bodies came in and intervened in the election and basically threatened sanctions on the PNC and threatened sanctions on Ghana unless the PNC stepped down. So the PNC was eventually forced to concede the elections that they claimed that they'd won, and the PPP ended up getting into power because of that. So this created a situation where Africans in Ghana almost feel like the United States and other Caribbean countries that are involved, came into the country to impose an Indian government on Africans in Ghana. And because the politics is so racialized, there's always this sense of Indians in Ghana feel oppressed whenever the PNC is in power because they feel like Africans are in power and Africans are so racist and they're there to exploit Indians. And Africans feel the same way when the Indians are in power. So when the PP's in power, Africans again always complain about ethnic discrimination and oppression. So and this has been the state of Guyanese politics since independence. You mentioned Walter Rani, and what Walter Rani was involved in the Working People's Alliance was, how do we bring about the type of unity among the different ethnic groups in Guyana so that our politics isn't constantly competing against each other as different ethnic groups, whether African or Indian or Portuguese. And the other thing that the Working People's Alliance was concerned with was the indigenous people in Guyana, or what are called the Amerindians. They're completely excluded from basically every level of Guyanese society. So it's a question of, how do we ease these ethnic tensions, and how do we bring marginalized groups into the political process? And yeah, it's very complicated, but to make a long story short, basically the situation of Africans in Ghana today is they're locked into this ethnic conflict between East Indians, and the tragedy of this conflict is, I mentioned the PNC and the PPP are the two leading political parties. Both of those parties engaged in a lot of corruption and a lot of underhanded things. So it's a circumstance where not only are Africans in Ghana engaged in ethnic competition, but they don't really have strong political leadership that actually represents the interests of the African masses. What they have is a political party which is just as corrupt and just as willing to exploit the African masses as the PPP. So it's a very complex situation because, as I said, there's the factor of the ethnic competition, but then when you look at the politics as well, there's also an issue of the African political leaders in Ghana are just as willing to exploit the African masses as the Indians. But how do you address that in a country where people feel like they have to fight against other racial groups? So it's almost a situation where a lot of activists and a lot of Pan-Afrikanists in Ghana, they almost feel like they don't want to criticize the PNC, they don't want to criticize corrupt Black leadership, because it almost seems like a betrayal in a sense. It almost seems like, why are you attacking your own people when we're locked in this ethnic competition? And this is something that Walter Rani struggled with in the 70s and 80s, because he was struggling against Forbes Barnum, who's an African prime minister. So it was, like I said, that same situation of some segments of Ghana were looking at Walter Rani almost as like a sellout type of figure, because why are you going against your own people when the struggle is against Indians? And unfortunately, that's been the circumstance in Ghana from 1966, when Ghana became independent, to today. So it is a very complex situation, and there's a lot of issues of race and class wrapped up in there as well. I hope that answers the question, because like I said, it's very complicated and it's very difficult.
Definitely. That's the point.
I recognize that, because those who know me know as a Bayesian, but I'm also I'm a Guyanese, Georgetown, and and so I recognize when you talk about the difference and how that there's this persistent competition, the ethnic competition, it's so toxic that it allows for allows for less to flourish, because they're still dealing with those kinds of, that's layered, persistently layered on top of, that's still showing up all the time. And then you're not getting to what you really need to get to in order to really get the liberation really off the ground. I mean, I came out, my internet was doing something, so I missed some of the conversation, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I recognized it in my own upbringing, even though much wasn't said, it was very, it was the unsaid that to infer that, you could sense it a lot of the time. And so when you say that, it's like confirmation as to, it's like just getting this thing off the ground. Yeah, so I recognize. So thank you for acknowledging that.
From my understanding, it's a similar situation in Trinidad. Except for the fact that Africans are the majority in Trinidad. You know what I'm saying? So that's it's interesting, these dynamics. Family, we're going to wrap up very shortly. There's a couple more comments in the chat. Afro Native says Bolsonaro is burning the rainforest and displacing the indigenous people. This is the case. M.A. Brown says, I'm familiar with that fact. I'm not sure what he's referring to there. It looks like you taught brother pro-black perspective a new word, brother Dwayne Omawale, identitarian. You taught him a new word, so we give thanks for the expansion of the vocabulary and all these things. I think Kemi Seba said the same thing. Shout out to brother Kemi Seba and the brothers and sisters from Agence Pan-Afrikanists who have branches all over the African continent, well, Western Central Africa. And we had the good opportunity on gotkushTV to be part of a coalition that hosted our good brother Kemi Seba at the end of 2019. So you can find the video of his first English-speaking speech. Yeah, he spoke in English for like 75% of the speech. Yeah, and that's the only time he's ever done that. Yeah, so brothers and sisters, you can check that out on gotkushTV right now, because we had the opportunity to film that. So we give thanks. Right there, I think there was another comment. But thank you all, my brothers, sister who's not with us, for joining us. I think this has been a very informative show. We've been able to give our listeners a very inform our listeners, our viewers, of the situation in various different parts of the African world, and we're gonna have to call you all back at some point, yeah, if it's even individually, to go more deeper into things, especially because we only touched on Togo, you know what I'm saying, and we didn't even get to Bermuda and these kinds of things. But yeah, it is powerful that we can do this as a people. And there's power in just even the conversation that we had today, and so we look forward to it manifesting into some more principled and operational unity. Do you have any final questions or closing words, Sister Mott?
No, I just really, I'm just it's been very enriching, and I just really appreciate the spectrum of knowledge, and giving us being able to highlight this. It's an honor to have you in the space, because we don't get to do this these kind of conversations, especially with the times we're in, and what and with the Maxine and the Soviet. We're calling her different names today, yeah. So these conversations become more important. We're hearing Quarantine Convos and all this kind of thing that we're choosing to do, but we really appreciate that you've taken the time to do this. You're building, and I want to appreciate, however the steps are. We have to understand, family, that the liberation is continuous. Yeah. We have to understand that it's a continuous, it's generational. That's why, you'll find that I'll always have a conversation. I'll always bring the children into it somewhere in a conversation, because it's always going to be about them and the seeds we plant. And this is documentation, yeah, of the work that we are still doing and still need to do. So I just really want to thank you all for being here tonight, and just, imparting this knowledge on us, so that we can now start to think, more globally. We have a tendency to think, very locally. And so now, we get a chance to, and it's either Africa or America, but we're not seeing it. You might be in America, but now we're seeing the levels and the layers, and that the work still needs to get done. And if we are going to travel, to our continent, then it's an opportunity for us now, with what you've shared, for us to know where to tap in and what parts to tap in, and where we can see our strengths and place our strengths inside of that. So give thanks.
I share. My brother M.A. Bunya raises a good point, yeah, and he says, gotkushTV, we also give tainted thanks for our brothers speaking English. As we know, we are spoilt, yeah, and this is a good point, right? That has to be made, yeah. Trust me, Africans in the English-speaking world are spoilt, yeah, because English is the global language of trade. We very rarely have to learn another language to communicate. And so because of that, a lot of us are very lazy. I mean, I myself am trying a thing. Yeah, I'm learning Chi at the moment. I will learn French at some point, right? You know what I'm saying? But African language are key in terms of the things that I want to learn. But it is important. That's why the reason why we had to have this show, because that we connect in spite of the quote unquote language barrier. And it would have been beautiful, even if none of the brothers could speak English and we had translators for them. That's fine, yeah. Because we need to be able to learn to communicate despite, you know what I'm saying, whatever hindrances there are. And at some point, we have to even get into the sign language. We should never have a session like this without sign language, yeah, or subtitles that can track. Do you know what I'm saying? So brothers and sisters who are hearing impaired can also take part in the situation. I'm going to take a liberty and ask Brother Joao one more question, and then we're going to get the three of you to let people know where that people can find you, yeah, and your work and your organizations and so on and so forth, all right, on social media, the internet, or whatever. Brother Joao, you mentioned Guadeloupe, yeah, and people getting in touch with the voodoo, yeah, and this is a subject that is passionate to me, so I'm taking a small liberty, yeah, to ask you about that, because I believe that the reclamation and the affirmation of ourselves as a people cannot be divorced from our culture and our indigenous spiritual systems, yeah. And so I just wanted to ask you about that in Guadeloupe in particular. If you could just go into a little bit more detail, feel free to not be too extensive, but just a little bit more detail in terms of what that represents among our people in Guadeloupe, and the role that voodoo, if any, is playing in organizing or politicizing the people.
So unfortunately, this is still a minority of the population who will, you know, openly acknowledge it. But you know that a lot of people who don't know that they are actually engaging with some trace of voodoo in and they are mixing this in Catholicism. Like, for example, my grandmother, when she gonna see what we call Quimbois, meaning the people that you see, we're gonna tell you stuff and all of that. This is stuff that the church doesn't like, but she still doesn't acknowledge that it's related to voodoo. When you tell her that, she's like, no. Yes, it is. But to give you the name of there's an organization called Racine, which means roots. And every 2 years, they didn't do that because of COVID in 2020, but starting from several years before, the last one was 2018, they are organizing what they call Le Mois de l'Afrique, meaning African month in Guadeloupe. So they're bringing people, Pan-Afrikanists from all over the world. And there is also a strong component of question around spiritualities, workshop and things like this. So, so if you want to check that out, you can check what they are doing, because this is something important for them. And I just learned recently that there is a sister who just bought land, because the question of land, we say decolonize, but one of the most things to decolonize is the land. There's a sister who just bought a piece of land in one of the small town of Guadeloupe, and she's committed to not live there, but to build a place there to organize talks about African spirituality, African heritage, and all of this. So I'm really hoping that she will not find obstacles on this road.
Yes, my brother. Thank you for that. And thank you for indulging me in that respect. Please let people know where they can keep in touch with you and the work of your organizations. Brother Joe? So we'll start with you.
So, okay. So
yeah, please.
I was writing in the chat. So my on Twitter is Joao Guadeloupe, and the name of the organization is in French is Ligue Pan-Africaine Umoja, and on Facebook you will find it if you use LP/Umoja. So they're on Facebook like that, and there is the website. I'm gonna put the website back. So this is where basically you will have some of the organization and activities. But honestly, if you look at a brother called Amzat Boukari Yabara, if you follow that brother, you will have a lot of information about activities, because True is the Secretary General. So, you know, sometimes we are not good in communicating to the actual page of the organization, but if you follow what he's doing, you will know that sometimes we were with several delegates over there and all of that. So
yes, sir. And thank you to Brother Amzat, because if it wasn't for the brother, we wouldn't have you here. So we give thanks to Brother Amzat. I appreciate it, my brother. I'm going to share all of those links and that in the chat, so stay tuned. Brother Pedro, let people know where they can find you. I see you put some links in the chat as well, so I'm going to post them as well. But yes, let people know.
Okay. So first of all, one more time, I'd like to thank you a lot for this moment. I think that really we are our struggle is international, and there's no other way. So I think that this is the point, and I'm really happy that I could have been in touch with you and with people that I have met in activities of global African um, movement. And
Excellent.
so I would like to thank you a lot, and to say that to find me on Instagram, it's at pedroaugusto.50, but the number pedroaugusto.50, and on Facebook I put and on the commentaries on YouTube. And my organization, I'm part of an organization called Resistência, which builds the Socialist and Liberty Party here in Brazil. And the site is esquerdaonline.com. So I put also there, and it's only in Portuguese, most of the things, but we have the main text that we put about the political situation. We translate to English too, so you can see things about Brazil, about what's going on here, and about the Pan-African struggle here in Brazil. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we have a fantastic global imperialist corporation known as Google, and it has a pretty useful feature called the Google Translate. Yeah, so if you want to go on the website, let's use the Google Translate. I know we're trying to not use Google nowadays, but it is pretty useful. It has its utilities in some respects. So use the Google Translate if you want to read something. I do that sometimes. Yeah, translate whole document from French into English just so I can know what's going on. So yeah, so that's one way you can get over that language barrier also. And with that, thank you very much to Brother Pedro, and let me also thank Brother Glenroy Watson of the Global African Congress, because I actually reached out to him to connect me with a brother or a sister in the so-called Latin world, Latin American world, and he connected me with yourself, Brother Pedro. So we appreciate you, and thank Brother Glenroy Watson for making the link. Brother Dwayne Amawale.
Yeah, I'm available on Facebook as just Dwayne Wally, Pan-African writer, and on Twitter. I'm bad with Twitter because I never remember my handle, but I think it's D Omawali on Twitter if you want to find me on Twitter.
I think you're right, bro. Yeah.
I need to get better at that. But,
I thought you was gonna say. I thought you was gonna say I'm bad on Twitter because I hardly ever post. I was about to say, why are you lying to the people, bro?
But for the longest, Facebook and hardly use Twitter, but I'm getting better using Twitter.
Same here.
No.
All right.
I'm interested in my books. They're all available on Amazon, and it's all under my name, Dwayne Wally.
Give thanks, and with that, I do want to just remember, because Sister Amma's Twitter handle is different to her name, so let me get that and post that. CK Hippolyte it is, so I'm gonna post that in the chat also for brothers and sisters, and just to say, brothers, thank you once again. It's been a very important show, and we look forward to connecting with you all again, collectively or individually, as you know, we form more meaningful links here. Media is one of the ways that we can form greater links to with each other, yeah, as a global Pan-African world. So we give thanks. You feel free to let yourselves go, but thank you once again, yeah, for joining us. And we send you spiritual, mental, and principled and moral strength, yeah, to all of your work and the people that are surrounding you in all your various different organizations, you know, wherever you are situated and around the world. So thank you very much for joining us.
I just to close though, you might want to flash up the sisters' details actually, because otherwise, unless we're going to keep the chat, but I just want to close. Yeah, I opened with this quote, and I just and it's to just honor your work, all of you. Yeah, and I'm going to want to close with the same quote. Yeah, our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of Africa. Yeah,
That's right.
so we must remember that. We really thank you for being here and connecting us in that way. So yeah, appreciated.
Give thanks. Thank you, my brothers. We're gonna let you go. Give thanks. I want to let people know about some Africa Liberation Day observances. I think that be in all the system what. And shout out to Kushti Cosmetics in the building. She says, much more of this, please, gotkushTV. Defo need a part 2. So yeah, there's a number of sisters. In fact, it's mostly the sisters that couldn't make it today. Sister Campbell, and there's a couple other sisters that I was trying to get that couldn't make it. I'm not going to say their names, but definitely at some point we have to get them on. Because yeah, man, in
all fairness, we do have some surprises up our sleeve.
Indeed, we do. So stay tuned. Well, let me let the people them know before we conclude the proceedings about some of the AOD observances that are coming up, yeah, very quickly. All right, so all tight while I'm gonna start out this thing, yeah. So the main organizations that host Africa Liberation Day in the UK are the Pan-African Congress movement and the All African People's Revolutionary Party. I've seen information from the Pan-African Congress movement. I am yet to see information from the All African People's Revolutionary Party, but that may be because they're doing a global thing rather than a UK thing this year, although I don't see the UK mentioned on the flyer. Either way, because it's global, you can tune in. So let me make you know the information. So this is the information for the All African People's Revolutionary Party. I'm just going to leave it there for a piece. Yeah, it's taking place on the 25th of May. And so if you want to find the information, you can come back to this point in the video and you can get the details more succinctly. Yeah, so that's on the 25th of May. And obviously they've got representation from Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Guinea-Conakry, Johannesburg, South Africa, and Nairobi, Kenya. And they got 2 main themes: galvanizing world socialist movement for Pan-Africanism and galvanizing women for Pan-Africanism. Oh, and also, galvanizing African revolutionary parties in power for Pan-Africanism, so there's a lot of heavy topics going on there, kings and queens. So do check that out. There's another organization in the UK called the Pan-African Society Community Forum, which is having an African Liberation Day observance on the 29th of May. Oftentimes African Liberation Day observances take place on the weekend, the bank holiday weekend following the 25th of May, which is the actual day of Africa Liberation Day. And this is celebrating Mama Africa Ubuntu, yeah. And so you can check the information there. Obviously, all of these are online because of the current circumstance. So that's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because we can get connected with each other easily around the world and don't have to leave the yard, but also that physical connection is taken away, which we know is a hindrance, but we work with it because that's the circumstance that we're in right about now. So we appreciate that. And finally, the Pan-African Congress movement, which is the African Liberation Day celebration that I've been going to since I was born, is taking place on the 30th and the 31st of May, and they're going to be streaming live via PACM TV and a couple other platforms, yeah, but you can check that out. So on the 30th and the 31st of May, at 1 p.m. respectively on both days, the Pan-African Congress movement will be hosting Africa Liberation Day. So come back to this point in the video and you can check the information on the screen right about now. I should let people know I've got an event coming up as well called Affirming Black Manhood, because we have to affirm Black manhood, system.
Truth.
Black African manhood is in need of affirmation. So check out shakaraspeaks.com if you want to know more information about that. It's a man event. It's a brothers event, yeah. So the sisters, then please, send the information to your man, you know what I'm saying, your brother, you know what I'm saying, your son, your father, your uncles, they're your best friend, your linkage, you know what I'm saying, whatever it is, like whatever your relationship with his brother is, feel free to send him the information and even buy my ticket. Say, go and learn something about manhood, and all these things. So yeah, but it's just basically about us being able to take back the power to define and develop ourselves as men, as opposed to having our ideals of manhood imposed upon us, from the society in which we live. And I've got an international panel of brothers that are going to be facilitating conversations around that. So that's taking place on Sunday, the 20th of June. So do check that out, family. I just wanted to let brothers and sisters, and brothers in particular, know about that. Any closing words, Sister Mo?
Excellent. Well, just to let you know who we have on next week. We have our sister Peaches. She is a fantastic woman. I love this woman. She's a community engagement practitioner, and she also focuses on young people's development, and with community engagement. She's a motivational speaker, but also she's also a co-founder of the Womanhood Academy. So we'll have her on next week. She is full of energy, powerhouse. Be ready. She'll make you laugh. She can make you cry. She is pure energy and fire. So be ready for that. Again, don't forget, at the beginning of the show, we spoke about the petition. Please sign it. If you came in late on the show, go back to the beginning of the show, check out the petition, Valerie's Law petition. Go search that, sign it, send it. Remember the 2 steps. Sign it once and then go to email to verify that you've signed it. Let's get this petition on and look after the community. All right, so those are my closing words for the evening.
Thank you very much, Sister Mo. And tune in next week, family, Thursday 7 p.m. If you know Peaches, you know it's going to be lively. All right, so check it out. Come through. You know what I'm saying, you don't know. Peaches, we love Peaches around here, so we give time. So we're gonna have a good conversation with Sister Peaches. Man, like up the video, share it far and wide, kings and queens. This has been a very important show with some very important guests. So share it far and wide, and most importantly, watch it again and go look up and inform yourselves even more in your own time. It's very important that we connect with our people, even spiritually, just by knowing Wagwan. In different parts of the black world. So we give thanks for that opportunity.
Can I just say sorry? Do we get to flash up the brother Dwayne's? I know it went in the chat, but do we get to flash him up? Flash up his handles at all?
All right, 1 second. Let me. He didn't post them. So all right, I'll just put the D.
Let's flash that up just in case, because we want everybody to get.
Understood, sis. Understood.
Yes, understood. So looking forward to next week. Enjoy. Go back and see the show. Like Shakara said, it's an opportunity for us to be able to research particular areas. We never get to hear about Guadeloupe. We don't hear much about what's going on in Guyana. We don't hear about much what's going on in Brazil. We do hear dynamics and things that are going on in Haiti, but this is an opportunity for us to start thinking on a global level. So go back.
Most definitely, my sister. Thank you very much. Man, I'm just in the spirit of Thanksgiving, kings and queens. So just check out next 7 p.m. gotkushTV, Quarantine Convos with Sister Peaches, myself, Sister Mort. Remember that, and always remember, you ain't got nothing.
Ain't got nothing if you ain't got
Kush.
A year, 2020, a year of many unforeseen challenges, where all had to adjust to a new reality. And despite it all, gotkushTV was and still is here to serve you. And what a year it's been. We began the repatriation journey with our new show, Voyage to Motherland. We dropped the knowledge as you took your seats in the Kush University and joined us to hold a meds with the Ankh Doc. gotkushTV invited you to get involved in controversial conversation and enter the cipher. And when the world went into lockdown, we kept you connected with the Quarantine Convos. We kept our finger on the pulse of the community with coverage of the Reparations Rebellion and the Black Pound Day All Dayer. Not to mention more wordsmith and a slew of new music video releases for your viewing pleasure, and the official launch of the gotkushTV website. We also brought you events including Women of Power and, of course,
Blacktricity. Now, in 2021, gotkushTV is continuing to level up the thing. First up, we are pleased to inform you that gotkushTV.com is open to exclusive memberships. Sign up to any of our membership tiers and you will gain access to playbacks from all our events and an ever-growing list of exclusive original content, including interviews, documentaries, and shows such as Kushkum University. To become an official member of gotkushTV.com, simply hit the membership tab. Stay tuned for continued updates. Then there's the new shows. Look out for more Decipher, Wordsmith, Hold a Meds with the Art Doctor, and weekly episodes of Quarantine Convos focused on health, wellness, education, and inspiration for our community. As always, the gotkushTV film team is available for hire to cover all your events, adverts, infomercials, and all filming needs. Visit us at gotkushtv.com for higher inquiries and more information. Stand by all black businesses through our website, social media, and show content. We have monumental advertising, sponsorship, and network opportunities catering specially for you. Check out the advertising page on gotkushtv.com for more information. gotkushTV is in full flight to join us for the ride. There's 4 things you can do. Subscribe to our channel. Hit that bell to make sure you don't miss a release. Join us on all social media and hit up gotkushtv.com to subscribe to our mailing list and sign up to become a gotkushTV member for exclusive opportunities in the near future. Let us know you are feeling our content by hitting that ever so important button of approval. Comment. We want to hear your feedback on everything we are putting out. So make sure your presence is felt in the comment section. Share. Spread the word by hitting that share button and exposing your circle to the magnificence that is gotkushTV. We are looking forward to building with you throughout 2021 and servicing you with high quality black media production. gotkushTV, beyond discussion, beyond debate, we put the power in black media. Blacktricity, gotkushTV's exclusive pre-Kwanzaa showcase is now available for you to watch absolutely free. In conjunction with Ghana, the On the Return series, we have brought the Afrikan Diaspora experience directly to you. To watch this monumental event absolutely free, simply register for membership at gotkushtv.com and you will receive access to Blacktricity as well as more exclusive content, including Reggie Rockstone, Yusufu Jallo, VVN, Malachi Selassie, Daddy Makes Dough, Tods, King Wiz, Tubada, Ras Ashiba, Mama Sia, Brother Leader Bandaka, Israel, Sister Moots, Carla Marie, Yemaya Sankofa, Goldflow, and a special Voyage to Motherland panel discussion. All this and more, hosted by Nat Nye and Stella B. Register now at gotkushtv.com.
Quarantine Convos. Enjoy weekly discussions with people from around the world assisting us in dealing with this normal, mentally, spiritually, and physically. We feature nutritionists, psychologists, therapists, personal trainers, home educators, legal experts, and more, bringing you all the information and inspiration you need. Check out Quarantine Convos every Thursday from 7 p.m. live on gotkushTV.